Good evening, everyone. Aloha. I'm so thrilled to welcome you into this space this evening. I'm Penny Hall. I'm Interim Director and CEO of the Honolulu Museum of Art. And once again, we are lucky enough to be having this program with the Merwin Conservancy. We have done it once before this year already, and it is such a joy to work with them every single time. We see the Merwin Conservancy as a critical partner in the cultural landscape of Hawaii. They bring different voices, different perspectives, and that's something that we like to see also incorporated into the art that we share at HOMA. So I am going to hand over now. We're going to have a short little video, and then we are going to hear from Sonnet, and she's going to introduce the program. We have another incredible poet, award-winning poet. It's going to be a treat. So welcome, everybody.
Yeah. Just kidding.
For some time, I had hoped that William Merwin would agree to be Poet Laureate of the United States.
Author of more than 50 books in verse, translation, and prose, W.S. Merwin has won just about every major
Elected for that series by W.H.
Pulitzer Prize for Poetry. It's the second he's won.
The top of the nation's newest poet laureate. Interested in the repeated references to all that is not known.
Launched many distinguished careers in America. The Yale series of younger poets.
A distinguished volume of original verse that focus on the profound power of memory. Congratulations, W.S. Merwin.
Place. On the last day of the world, I would want to plant a tree. What for? Not the fruit. The tree that bears the fruit is not the one that was planted. I want the tree that stands in the earth for the first time, with the sun already going down and the water touching its roots, in the earth full of the dead, and the clouds passing one by one over its leaves.
Aloha mai kako. I'm so happy to see everyone tonight and to be here. And thanks so much to Penny and all of our partners and friends here at the Honolulu Museum of Art, Clint and Amy and Nadine. Thank you so much for welcoming us here. It's a real treat to be here. And to be among old friends, I was realizing that my very first day on the job with the Merwin Conservancy was the night of a green room in this very auditorium 7 years ago. And some of you I met for the first time then. So it's really nice to be back with old friends in this place that's been so meaningful to us for so many years. And so many new people, too, to our work. So I'm really glad to all be together. The Merwin Conservancy is rooted in the convictions of the poet and activist and self-taught ecologist W.S. Merwin, as you know. And our purpose is to imagine new possibilities for place, poetry, and practice. And we do this in a couple of ways. We care for the 18-acre palm forest on Maui, on the north coast, that was made on land that was more or less given up as decimated, and now is a thriving, dense, very rainy palm forest, right? In the past few days, happily. We also we offer a residency in W.S. Merwin, William Merwin, and Paula Merwin's home for writers and artists and others who themselves make new possibilities for language and land. And we also tell stories, and we make programs that we hope foster attention to nature, language, and the imagination. So we love to bring people to the garden, and we love to come together with this program, the Green Room, which we've offered now, I think, for over a dozen years on Maui and also here on Oahu. And as I said, for much of that time, this has been our home away from home on your island. So thank you so much for having us back. We were reminiscing being here with Robin Wall Kimmerer, with Auntie Puolani Kanahele, and Richard Powers. And just maybe a couple weeks before the pandemic, we were here with Joy Harjo, which was an extraordinary evening. And then just a few months ago, we were all together with Padraig Otuma here in this auditorium. And no matter who's here with us in the green room here or in the green room on Maui or in the garden, we always leave feeling engaged and immersed in wonder and mystery and feeling inspired by the capacities of the human imagination. So engaged, inspired, immersed, and tonight I'm adding to that astonished. Astonished by the brilliance, the strength, and the tenderness, the eloquence and the elegance of our special guest, Rachel Eliza Griffiths, and by the clarity, sensitivity, and astounding beauty of her work. We are here because of the generosity, again, of our partners at HOMA, also Halekulani, and Nancy and Larry Moore, who are helping us present this series, as well as all of our green room hosts and patrons. Thank you so much. They're all here. They're these wonderful people who make the program continue and make it possible for us to be here. And I also want to thank our board members, many of whom are here tonight, and former board members. Lee Hay, Jean Herbert, Vili Heranico, Jeff Lewis, Mary Locke, Susan Keene, Michael Moore, Amber Macayao, and Kathy St. Germans. Thank you all so much. Please join me in thanking them. Years ago, right after William died, and in the early days of the pandemic, we held, like many of you, I'm sure, joined many virtual event, and we held our first. And Rachel Eliza Griffiths joined us to read a poem. And then I was just so struck by her presence and her reading and her words that I wrote to her afterward with the hope that one day she would come to the garden. And over the years, I've come to know her work as a poet, as a novelist, as a visual artist, as a photographer. And I'm thrilled that this has come to pass, because she is currently in residence in the garden, as you know. And to welcome her last week into William and Paula's home was just to witness an incredible resonance with the space, with the energies there, a communing, I think, that was extraordinary to see. Her capacity to sense and to embody and give body to what is sensed in the form of poetic language is astonishing, astounding. Her book, Sensing the Body, I know many of you, we were talking about it earlier, just brought me to my knees. So we were really in for a very special evening. But it's not only in language that she gives form to all that she perceives. As I mentioned, she's a poet and a visual artist, photographer, novelist, and a memoir is forthcoming. I was so struck this morning, I don't know if you heard HPR, the interview with Rachel Eliza, but she said the crossing of genre is always fluent in me. It's always changing, it feels like water. Is it going to be ice? Is it going to be rain? Is it going to be snow? Is it going to be the ocean? And so I have to do a lot of trial and error sometimes to see what it is the material is demanding. It's the subject that will demand that I experiment. And so I think crossing genre as a kind of laboratory or imaginarium, a place to experiment. And so tonight I'm thrilled that Rachel Eliza Griffiths will take us into this imaginarium. She has 5 collections of poetry. Most recently, as I mentioned, Seeing the Body, which was selected as the winner of the 2021 Hurston Wright Foundation Legacy Award in Poetry. Then it was also the winner of the 2021 Paterson Poetry Prize, and nominated for the 2020 NAACP Image Award. And then in 2023, she published her first novel, Promise. And as I said, a memoir called The Flower Bearers is forthcoming in January, and I'm counting the weeks for that. Rachel Eliza's literary and visual work has been widely published in journals and magazines, anthologies and periodicals, so many to list here. And I'm just really elated that she's here with us tonight. So please join me in welcoming her.
Aloha. Before I invite you into my imaginarium, I first must give so much gratitude for this evening. I would like to first of all express gratitude for the ancestors of Hawaii who have allowed me to come into this gorgeous, gorgeous community and sacred space. I feel the energy and warmth and joy when I go to bed, in my dreams, when I wake up, and in every person I've met. I've just wanted to say thank you and feel as if I found another home in some way. And when I think of home as a poet and other things, I must think about the life and poetry of W.S. Merwin. And so I would really love to extend my gratitude to everyone who makes the Green Room series possible, to thank the board of the W.S. Merwin Conservancy, to especially give love to Nina and to Sonnet and Chuck. And also I would love to thank, as I was saying earlier, whenever I come to any museum that just has such gorgeous art, I'd like to thank Penny and Amy and also Sarah and Danny and Zach, who helped me with my technology issues earlier, and just to say thank you to all of you for coming out this evening to share poetry, to gather together, to celebrate, to praise, to grieve. There are some very dear friends of mine who I've not seen in years, so I'm already tearful, I'll warn you right now. And it's beautiful to meet new spirits with their energy and stories. And so I just want to express my thanks and gratitude profoundly for the way that this space expands and opens me as a person, as a being, as an artist. Aloha, mahalo, thank you, thank you, thank you. What I'd like to do now is begin with a kind of almost meditation of visual work. Sonnet mentioned my identity as a visual artist, and what I'll say is that my visual artist is very barren when it comes to language about her visual art. So that means I don't talk too much about my photographs and how they're made or why they're made. I was speaking earlier to Susan, who was so lovely and described herself in one way as a plein air painter. And I would probably say that I'm a plein air photographer, which means I always need to be connected to nature or natural landscape. I would almost think of my photographs. They're mostly self-portraits, but they're also kind of landscape works. I am a lyric poet, and I think my photographs are also quite lyrical. The veil for me of spirit, ancestor, nature, it's kind of almost porous. It's not a thick veil for me. And so dreams, spirits, voices, haints, it's not just mythology, it's real how I organize myself in the world for various reasons that luckily are unknown to me most of the time until I need to know. So I will start with just a very brief slideshow of some of my images. Sometimes I am fantastical and surreal with wings. Other times I am very simple and stripped down. I believe the last image will end on the cover of Seeing the Body. And so I will describe a little bit of that so you know the narrative. And I think that is something perhaps as a novelist and a memoirist that, you know, when you look at a photograph, any of us, we say where, when, who is it, you know, and you see photographs of who was I in this this picture. Why did I wear my hair like that? Why did I wear those clothes? Or here's the only picture I have of my father or my grandmother, or there was a fire in the house and we grabbed the pictures. We had to get the family out. And so those are some of the ways that the photograph can help me, but also sometimes cannot help me. So in this image, you'll see at the end, and it'll be large here, which is actually really beautiful to me, is that this picture was taken in the desert in Santa Fe. It was the exact 1-year date of my mother's death. And I was assisted by the poet Natalie Diaz that day. I climbed up into this, it's kind of a white volcanic rock structure out in the desert, La Plazas Blancas, just outside Albuquerque where Georgia O'Keeffe lived. And she often painted this rock structure. And we went out into it and we did a lot of bad things in a big truck that had big wheels because you can drive fast and move around. I like that part. But then we got to the riverbeds and things, and it got very quiet, and I realized that just a year ago my mother had left me in one version, but she was still arriving to me in the way she does now. She's always here. And so I climbed up into this. I'm a very physical photographer. I'm not passive, which is very different from sitting at a desk and writing weird things out of my head onto a screen or with my pencil. So I will begin with showing the images, and then I will share some poetry with you. And before we even begin, I just want to thank you. Yeah. Thank you. And I believe, thank you. Aloha. There will be some time for a Q&A as I'm closing up from reading. And I think there is definitely a signing, which would make me happy. And if there are questions we don't get to, then you can ask me about photographs or anything, or give me advice while I'm here for the month of what I might want to check out. So I'm going to turn a little bit this way. It's better for me. So I'd like to begin this reading of poems this evening. I'd like to begin with a poem from W.S. Merwin. This is called The Nomad Flute. Is this okay? You can hear me? Great. The Nomad Flute. You that sang to me, once sing to me now. Let me hear your long lifted note. Survive with me. The star is failing. I think I can think further than that, but I forget. Do you hear me? Do you still hear me? Does your air remember you? O breath of morning, night song, morning song. I have with me all that I do not know. I have lost none of it. But I know better now than to ask you where you learned that music, where any of it came from. Once there were lions in China. I will listen until the flute stops and the light is old again. So I'm going to read some poems from Seeing the Body, and if there's time, I might read new poems. The poems in Seeing the Body are about both my grief at my mother's death, but also my praise of the love that my mother gave me and gives me yet, and all of the ways that grief can change us, can make us curious, make us feel astonished, and also kind of bring us down to a very, very vulnerable place. So when I was writing the book, I wanted to think about a song. What was the song that would take me through the writing of this book? And I came up with Stevie Wonder, because he'd kind of raised me, like my parents, slow dancing, us jumping around, me and my 3 other siblings. Like when Stevie Wonder came on, we all got activated, for better or for worse. And so there's a song he has called As. And I feel as though this song, because it's a long song, which they don't really make anymore, and I just dated myself, but that's fine. It's this long song, and it goes, it's the mountains, as the sea, as it's a poem. It's as this is this, I love you, and I will be here for you, and as the mountains, as the sun in the sky, always. And he just keeps repeating this word, always. But under the music, there's a moment where he asks, did you know you're loved by somebody? And that's the epigraph of this book, because sometimes working on this book, I had to ask myself that question. Seeing the body. She died, and in the spring of her blood, I remember my mother's first injury. Surprise of unborn petals curling red, then dark around her wrist. Some fruit she cut, some onion, some body with skin and sharp seeds. She fed me. She lived us and I. She held we and I. She kept speaking with those flowers falling from her blood, taking her across the sky to death. I remember her voice like a horn I never want to pull out of my heart. In the next life, which is here and here, I gather every mouth that ever sang my mother's blues. She burned and she talked back hard at God. Oh, my mother, she danced unbroken too. Veil of grief on my back, opening into something black I wear. A life of flesh, like a petal or fruit or burning. I've carried everything, and I'm tired. My mother survived but she did not live. She told me nothing, and she was waiting the entire time. How does the elegy believe me? Together we crossed the sky. There was a gate, and we walked through the world like that. She wrote we and I. She was last or never seen, and I. Brown eyes without life opened her eternity when the air in her stopped, and she was last seen dying. She was too silent for the first time in her life. The spring of my mother's blood hot, in God, the dark, dark, beyond the closed door that won't move again. This poem is called Comedy, and I think one of the things that I learned, my mother was ill since I was a child, since maybe 11 or 12 years old, and it was kind of understood that she was never going to get better. It was just going to go in one direction. And so over the years, you get a kind of humor that you have to kind of survive really traumatizing, vulnerable, painful moments. And so spending over many years, different moments in the hospital, watching my mother fight to live, there were also moments where we had to laugh. We had to kind of just, let it be. Comedy. I am here before the nurse brings my mother breakfast. I study her body, try to remember if I caught my mother in the dream I had the night before, where the hem of her gown flew through a silver tunnel without end. Her skin went right through my hands whenever I was close enough to save her. She slipped through her name I could not stop calling until I sat up alone in my crib. Embarrassed, she tells me she remembers how she phoned me last night to let me know she was in the morgue. She laughs as the nurse, whose feet squeak in Minnie Mouse Crocs, arrives with tea. We watch the nurse with eyes that will never remember her face. Thank her for the toast that is thicker than my mother's hand. That morphine is some powerful shit, my mother says. I agree with her, as though she has merely mentioned it is cold outside, though I have rarely had morphine and have never made courtesy calls from a morgue. It was late, and I didn't know where I was, she says, because that wasn't death, which means I couldn't have called you from that place. This is my new mother, who has finally admitted fear into the raw ward of her heart. This is my mother who flew away from my grasp in the tunnel without end. The woman who could not wait for me to grab the white edge of where she was going. I was afraid, she says. Looking over the rim of her plastic cup, my mother shakes the world, chipped ice between us. Yeah, don't go and write about me like that, she says. I already know you will. My mother would constantly have this thing, don't write about me like that, don't write. She would call me at 6 a.m. when I was working on my historical novel from the 1950s. I know you aren't writing about me. Yeah, she's right now. Good deeds. Then think of every song of love hurled at you and yours. Recall how battered you were by sheer understanding so that you might surrender. Not her being gone, but everything else. The world insists you return. You go along with the house rules, what the passage of sunlight means, a warmth that is bold enough to burn the world alive. I say, I can't remember how to be the same. I say, I can't pretend to be that woman, the world, or the love song you left behind your eyes. I say that I am beginning to understand the way my friends sing alone inside walls. One of the endless things I'm grateful about being in the garden is the company of the trees there. It is beyond spectacular to imagine over 3,000 trees. Maybe they're just even teenagers now. Being able to listen to them and hear the rain. There's been a lot of rain and a lot of mud. But to hear their songs and their music grow and think about that. So this is where my mother is buried, there are 7 trees that I have gotten to know very well. Elegy surrounded by 7 trees. Ordinary days deliver joy easily again, and I can't take it. If I could tell you how her eyes laughed, or describe the rage of her suffering, I must admit that lately my memories are sometimes like a color warping in my blue mind. Metal abandoned in rain, my mother will not move, which is to say that sometimes the true color of her casket jumps from my head like something burnt down in the genesis of a struck flame, which is to say that I miss the mind I had when I had my mother. I own what is yet, which means I am already holding my own absence in faith. I still carry a faded slip of paper where she once wrote a word with a pencil and crossed it out. From tree to tree around her grave, I have walked and turned back, if only to remind myself that there are some kinds of peace which will not be moved. How awful to have such wonder. The final way wonder itself opened beneath my mother's face at the last moment, as if she was a small girl kneeling in a puddle and looking at her face for the first time, her fingers gripping the loud, wet rim of the universe. So just before when we were upstairs and I was like, oh, we're having all this fun. And I'm like, oh, I have to read my poems. A lovely woman, I want to say no, I see you waving. Please forgive me. I remember, I can see it, but my pronunciation was talking about sometimes when you're in a really vulnerable moment, another human being can really see you and there's no strings attached. It's just human beings loving up on each other when they're hurting. And I have been very fortunate to have quite a few human beings love up on me in really awful moments that then later when I'm like, where are the signs? And I'm like, oh, that was the sign. And I'm sure you all have had those moments too. This poem is called Good Mother. I feel like I'm doing a that I don't want. If I pull back, can you still hear me? Yeah, okay, great. Good Mother. Praise the woman who took me in her arms and wouldn't let go of me. We sank to the floor in the middle of the aisle in Rite Aid. It was a late morning and I walked slowly, furious that spring could still be so wonderful. Magnolia tempted me to forget about my mother for a few minutes. I stared at a Brooklyn blue sky through branches clasping pear blossoms. The limbs shook in sunlight. My eyes adjusted when I went into the pharmacy and realized everywhere I looked, the world announced it would soon be Mother's Day. Something ripped itself out of me, a howl so wide I thought I would burst. The woman near the counter understood right away. The way my mother once understood I have been born in a specific sadness. The woman did not say she was a mother, but I knew it. She put her arms around me and waved away the cashiers, the security guard, who repeated, "Ma'am, ma'am." A stranger rocked me in her arms, so much kindness as we fell over and crashed against a row of votive candles. She didn't say it would be okay. She didn't ask me what was wrong, but her arms put me in a vicious prayer. I almost bit her, almost pushed her away. We held on and praised the nameless thing that makes us what we think we aren't strong enough to know. She knew. She didn't let go of me. Praise the woman who didn't wipe my snot from her shirt, my tears from her collarbone, who did not tell me to pull myself together while everything inside me dropped. Crushed bones, blossoms pushing through my mouth, a word, "Mom, Mom, Mom." This broken birdsong of mine, with no bird, no wing, no way to fly back through time. Praise the woman who did not leave me like something suddenly dead on the sidewalk with a breeze blowing over its face. Praise the woman who smelled like fabric softener and coffee and the good things I must believe I am too. Praise the mothers who walk slowly through the world, bringing children into themselves, burying children sometimes before themselves, and who defend something harder than innocence. Praise the guts and grace of mothers. Praise their exhaustion and their good work. Praise their wit, their wonderful ways of listening to the world fall asleep against its clean pillow. For the woman who knelt with me in an ugly heap in the middle of Rite Aid on an unbearable spring day, who helped me buy a mother's card for my dead mother, who knew better than to say I'd be just fine. For you, I lift my arms each spring and wish you a kindness so fantastic, I sometimes feel I'm in midair, the shadow of my wings clapping in joy above your children who must love you. Chosen family, when you find your people, you'll still look over your shoulder sometimes to see if you're being followed. You're hoping one or two people you don't know will want to see where you're going. When you find your people, they won't ask you where you came from because they'll already know. And if they don't, they'll be busy putting good food on your plate and asking you if you're hungry or broke. When you find your people, they'll tell you to use any bathroom you want, marry anybody you want, work side by side for short hours with full wages without any fear of being harmed. When you find your people, they'll throw their star to you, offer you their love song and say, you need to listen to this, dance, and shine with us, whether or not you know all the steps. When you find your people, they'll say, do you remember? And you'll say yes, until you remember together the different ways the whole thing happened. When you find your people, they'll say, wear whatever you want. Wear the tightest dress. Wear your hot pants, your fishnets, your damn birthday suit. They'll say, we love your black skin and drag and fat and natural hair, and we love you from your roots. So please just live and don't let anybody kill you or tell you they've killed you and you're just fine the dead way you are. When you find your people, don't leave them and don't let them off the hook when they are in the wrong. When they are trying to take themselves out of this world, lay your hands on them and call them yours and yours and yours. When you find your people, be sure you've been preparing your difficult heart by loving yourself. And what you pretend you don't know, you actually do. So that when you see your kin smiling into your eyes, the soft or tough flag of their hands covering yours in a truth so light and fierce, you see you all have been mid-air for some time and could go higher and burn some shit up if you remembered what else is good everywhere and everywhere you look. So I forgot to turn my timer on. I think I might do maybe one more. Yes, thank you, Amy. I'm going to read one poem from, I don't know if I'll call it a book yet. Maybe I will, but I will read a poem for a dear sister of mine. And the poem's title is called Who Will Write Such Things? And then if there are some questions, I feel very Merwin to say, like, I don't have the answer, but I'll have like a tree. So, who will write such things? I gave away my stones so that I might sink to the bottom of what darkness loves, what love craves, generous to those who will live like voices in the earth. There will be more of everything, more love, more names and windows. If there is anything else to see, it will show its face at the bottom of the world, in a light that the living do not know, yet love and fear. The same way we need to see the face of gods in a wake of clouds. I once pointed at animals treading the sky. The rain in my throat clenched its sorrow, like my mother's hand searching for the skull of her child, lost in her labor of seeing me. World before world, I turn against the silent trees who remember seeds blowing from the mouths of stars that will no longer tell us we will live forever in this rich dust we have loved not nearly enough. Aloha. Are there any questions about photographs, about poems? Hi.
Hi, thank you so much. That was really powerful.
Thank you.
I would love if you could share about the imagery of the flag and what it means to you.
Yeah, the imagery of the flag. So I think the images that you've seen of the flag are probably at least a decade old for me. And I've always been interested in the flag and the American flag. And for me, it makes me think of language and how certain words like promise, dream, river, sky, rain, that we bring these different identities and definitions and locations, like what our landscape looks like, to how we engage the relationship with that. So I think when I was younger, for example, there's an image of me where I'm blurred and I'm jumping beneath an American flag. That was an elegy photograph. It was taken in the Deep South. A lot of the photos you saw were taken in the Deep South. I've gone all over kind of in the tradition of Robert Frank and the Americans, kind of going by myself as a queer Black woman through these different landscapes to see. So that one image, for example, where I'm jumping was the same day that the Charleston 9 happened, where 9 Black people were killed in cold blood in a place of worship. And I could not wrap my mind around the symbol and the world and the violence, which is something even now, unfortunately, in my life, I constantly am engaging the presence of violence. And so late at night, I was driving around these like southern roads with these palmetto flying cockroaches and stuff. Anyway, I saw this flag in an old train yard near these train tracks in the Great American Railroad and the mythology of that and what that was going to do. And I got out of my car and set up my tripod, and I often work alone. And I just started jumping and trying to fly. Like I wanted to reach that flag and I couldn't. And the physical exertion of it for me felt similar to something inside the flag itself. And so I think having veterans in my family, having police officers in my family, having immigrants in my family, amongst other things, I just feel like there was something about a certain period of my time where I was really engaging, and my mind could not accept almost traumatically that people can be murdered, as we know, in places of worship or divinity. It doesn't even matter what their faith is. It's just that they're human beings killed as they are making an offering and receiving love. And so in an incomprehensible way, I could never write about that really, but I could make this image of my own body to the point of exhaustion, just jumping for probably like 3 hours. Out of all of the photos, that turned out to be the one that seemed most engaging. But then that image was used on the cover of one of the women who founded Black Lives Matter. And so then that image, it's still me, but it's different now because it went out on that kind of autobiography of that woman's journey and things like that. And then there was a first one where there was a Black woman who came to my studio in Brooklyn, and she'd fell off her bike and skinned up her knees a few days ago. And she said, "I'm so sorry, my knees are wrecked. I skinned them up." And so I had a very different idea for our session of what she was going to be doing. But when I saw the scars on her knees, I suddenly just switched the concept. And I said, sit on these 2 different flags. So they're 2 different flags. And the way that there may be for some of us kind of multiple versions of America. I feel like the mythology of my parents and, I don't know, different people I know, just these different versions of America we're all engaging with. So that's something about why the flags are. It's hard for me to look and think, wow, who was I with the flags and stuff? But I think I also loved, when I think of like Jasper Johns, I think of, I want to say, is it David Hammons with his flag? I mean, there's just such a tradition of artists engaging. Gordon Parks with his, his flag and the woman standing there. I think is a woman. So there is something too of artists also engaging the energy of the flag that is much, much older than me. And I think I wanted to stand in that village for a moment. Thank you. Yes, please. Hi.
Hi, I don't have a question. I'm sitting here just absorbing all that you shared.
Thank you so
And
much.
I am so moved. You had me see one.
I was going to try to put it on, but I'm not that technologically advanced to put the ads on. I put it on in Kauai when I was there last week. It was gorgeous. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing tonight.
I appreciate you. Thank you. Is there any more? Hi.
Have your objectives changed since you started your residency?
Have my objectives changed since I started the residency? I came with very loose objectives. I think as long as I've been a poet, I guess a poet where I was a poet since I was a child, but once I kind of maybe did an MFA and just different things like that, W.S. Merwin's work was always there for me. And so once to be in the garden, it's making me start at the beginning, rereading his work and listening to his voice on different interviews and readings and things. And I think I've been preparing myself, actually, as Sonnet mentioned, I just finished a very, very vulnerable memoir. So the time of my objective is almost restorative energy in the garden, like when the fields and the land restore themselves and they go wild again. So I'm kind of going wild again before I have to start on a complicated book tour. And I think absorbing the light, checking out the rainbows, like just be here. And I was saying, like, this notion of play, actually, play. Get some watercolors. I've had those out. I've just been having, like, fun. Feels like a bad 3-letter word, but, like, it's been really great. And so I've got a really demanding 7-year-old nephew and a 3-year-old niece, and they're like, Auntie, where's our children's books? What are you doing? So I might be looking at that, which brings me great joy. But I think my objectives is listen to the garden. Be open to the garden. Don't force my will of, like, I'm going to be here and write my 200. I'm not doing anything. I'm going to listen to the vibrations in the land. So that's how I'm feeling. I love that question. Thank you. I think we have time for one more. Is there? And if there's other questions, feel free to ask me when we go out into the courtyard. Aloha. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.